Lear said, "I want the show to die an honorable death." Carroll O'Connor was not the obvious choice to play Archie Bunker. Before stepping onto the set, he was known for more sophisticated, even sympathetic roles, far from the gruff, opinionated character who would soon dominate American television. The casting decision itself was a gamble. Producers needed someone who could make audiences laugh at Archie's outrageous views, while still believing in the humanity behind him. O'Connor delivered that balance with astonishing precision. What made him perfect for the role was not just his talent, but his perspective. Unlike Archie, O'Connor held liberal views, and that contrast gave him unique insight into the character. He could explore Archie's flaws without ever becoming Archie, giving the performance layers that casual viewers often missed. Creating Archie Bunker was not simply a matter of memorizing lines and delivering punchlines. O'Connor worked closely with Norman Lear and the writing team to shape a character that would resonate with the public. Reflecting the contradictions of American society in the 1970s, every gesture, every pause, every muttered aside was deliberate. Behind the scenes, O'Connor would rehearse scenes repeatedly, testing the boundaries of Archie's personality. He understood that Archie was more than a comic figure. He was a mirror reflecting societal tensions that many preferred to ignore. O'Connor's approach went beyond acting. It was almost sociological. He studied the habits, speech patterns, and prejudices of the everyman, translating them into a performance that was both entertaining and unsettlingly accurate. Even in those early days, the atmosphere on set was electric, but not always comfortable. Writers and producers debated how far they could push Archie's opinions without alienating viewers. O'Connor often found himself in the middle of these discussions, advocating for authenticity over sensationalism. He argued that Archie should feel real, even if that meant making audiences uncomfortable. And it worked. Viewers laughed at his bigotry, but they also recognized themselves, or someone they knew, in Archie's stubbornness, misunderstandings, and surprising moments of vulnerability. That delicate balance between humor and truth was the secret ingredient that made All in the Family unlike anything that had come before. What many people don't realize is that developing Archie Bunker involved more than rehearsals and scripts. It was an ongoing negotiation between character and actor. O'Connor would sometimes push back on dialogue he felt was too extreme or unrealistic, insisting that Archie remain believable. These decisions were crucial because Archie could easily have become a caricature rather than a complex, multidimensional character. O'Connor's dedication transformed him from a typical sitcom actor into someone capable of holding a mirror up to society itself. He wasn't just playing Archie, he was studying him, learning from him, and refining him in ways that kept audiences engaged for nearly a decade. Despite all the effort and careful planning, the set was never free from tension. The very characteristics that made Archie Bunker compelling, his outspoken nature, sharp tongue, and moral certainty, also created friction. Cast members, writers, and even O'Connor himself had to navigate the thin line between comedic exaggeration and real-world offense. This constant push and pull between authenticity and entertainment became a defining feature of the show, shaping every episode and storyline. But that was only the beginning. The world outside the studio was watching closely, and the reactions would soon test everything Carroll O'Connor believed about television comedy and the power of a character who refused to be ignored. From the moment All in the Family premiered, it was impossible to ignore the shockwaves it sent through American television. Viewers were captivated, outraged, and often divided by Archie Bunker's blunt, uncompromising opinions. The show did not shy away from sensitive topics. Racism, sexism, politics, and generational conflicts were all placed front and center. For some, Archie was hilarious, a comic reflection of the people they knew. For others, he was a figure of frustration, an embodiment of ignorance that many felt should never be celebrated. The public reaction was immediate and intense, forcing Carroll O'Connor and the production team into uncharted territory. They were creating entertainment, but it was entertainment that demanded reflection, engagement, and often discomfort. Criticism came not only from viewers but also from cultural commentators and industry insiders who questioned whether the show's humor masked a more troubling message. Some argued that Archie's bigotry was normalized rather than challenged, that audiences might laugh but fail to recognize the harm in his attitudes. O'Connor, however, had a clear vision. He understood that Archie's appeal lay precisely in his contradictions. He was outspoken and flawed, yet deeply human. The actor publicly defended the show, emphasizing that laughter could serve as a catalyst for discussion. In interviews and private conversations, O'Connor stressed that the intention was never to glorify prejudice but to expose it, to spark dialogue that might otherwise never happen. Despite his best efforts, the weight of public scrutiny was undeniable. O'Connor was often confronted with letters from both devoted fans and angry critics, each expressing extreme viewpoints. Some praised him for tackling issues others avoided, while others accused him of exploiting sensitive topics for ratings. On set, the tension was palpable. Writers and producers debated every storyline and every line of dialogue, balancing the risk of alienating audiences with the desire to remain authentic. O'Connor played a key role in these discussions, advocating for careful handling of controversial material while insisting that the show never lose its edge. His commitment to integrity, both as a performer and as a public figure, helped steer All in the Family through storms that might have sunk a less careful production. The controversies, however, extended beyond the audience. Within the industry, peers and executives sometimes viewed the show as a gamble that could tarnish reputations. O'Connor faced pressure to soften Archie's character and tone down the satire in favor of broader appeal. He resisted. For him, the strength of Archie Bunker lay in honesty, in revealing uncomfortable truths that others were too polite or too afraid to confront. This stance earned him both admiration and criticism, and it defined much of his career. Over time, the tension between shock and humor became the hallmark of the series, a dynamic that kept viewers glued to their screens and sparked national conversation. Even as the show achieved record ratings, the personal impact on O'Connor was significant. He had to navigate fame, public opinion, and the moral responsibility of portraying a character who was as divisive as he was beloved. The stress of defending Archie, the constant debate over content, and the scrutiny of critics weighed heavily on him. Yet it also sharpened his instincts, honed his performance, and reinforced his dedication to the role. He understood that television had the power to shape thought and provoke dialogue, and he wielded that power with careful, deliberate precision. Just when it seemed the controversies might reach a breaking point, another challenge arose that would test O'Connor in ways he could never have anticipated, proving that life behind the scenes was far from the scripted reality viewers saw on screen. In the midst of All in the Family's unprecedented success, a labor dispute erupted that shook the very foundations of the show. CBS writers and crew members, frustrated over wages, working conditions, and creative control, initiated a strike that brought production to an abrupt halt. The atmosphere on set shifted almost overnight. What had once been a controlled, lively environment filled with laughter and rehearsals became tense, uncertain, and charged with anxiety. Carroll O'Connor, ever the professional yet deeply principled, found himself at a crossroads. He could have continued filming, keeping the show on schedule and protecting his own position. But O'Connor chose a different path, one that revealed another side of the man behind Archie Bunker. His decision to support the striking workers was not made lightly. He understood the risks. By refusing to film, he jeopardized the show's momentum, angered executives, and opened himself to public scrutiny. Yet he saw it as a matter of principle. The crew, often unseen by the audience, was the backbone of the series. Writers, set designers, camera operators, and technicians had poured their energy into creating a world that felt authentic and alive. O'Connor recognized that without them, Archie Bunker could never exist in the way audiences expected. Standing with the workers was not just an act of solidarity, it was a moral statement, a testament to his respect for everyone involved in bringing the story to life. The impact of O'Connor's stand rippled across the industry. Other actors and production teams took notice, and his support helped lend legitimacy to the workers' demands. He attended private meetings, offered encouragement, and even spoke publicly about the importance of fair treatment behind the scenes. While some executives were frustrated, the audience largely remained unaware of the tensions bubbling beneath the surface. The strike delayed production, but it also reinforced a critical lesson. Television is not just about actors or scripts. It is a collaborative effort that requires recognition and respect for every contributor. When the strike finally ended and production resumed, the atmosphere on set was different. Relationships had shifted. Trust had deepened in some cases, while new tensions emerged in others. O'Connor, while unwavering in his principles, had navigated a delicate balance between loyalty to the crew and his obligations as the show's lead actor. This episode highlighted the often unseen pressures of television production, the ethical dilemmas that arise when success collides with fairness, and the courage it takes to prioritize integrity over convenience. It also foreshadowed further challenges that would test O'Connor's resilience, his judgment, and his ability to maintain harmony in a world where personalities, egos, and opinions frequently collided. Even as the strike faded into memory, the consequences lingered. The industry took note of O'Connor's leadership, his willingness to risk his career for a greater good, and his unwavering commitment to fairness. It was a moment that defined him not just as an actor, but as a principled figure navigating the complex, high-stakes world of television. And while audiences saw only the humor and drama on screen, the truth behind the cameras told a story of courage, solidarity, and the unseen battles that shape the entertainment we consume. The challenges of labor disputes and workplace ethics were only the beginning. Behind the camaraderie and struggle, deeper tensions were simmering, tensions that would soon erupt in ways even O'Connor could not have predicted. While audiences were captivated by the laughs and social commentary on screen, the world behind the cameras of All in the Family was far from simple. Tensions between key figures and creative disagreements occasionally threatened to disrupt the harmony of the production. Carroll O'Connor, despite his calm demeanor and dedication to his craft, was not immune to these dynamics. Conflicts arose over creative decisions, script interpretations, and character direction, and O'Connor often found himself walking a fine line between collaboration and confrontation. The very qualities that made him a perfect Archie, his assertiveness, his commitment to authenticity, and his unwillingness to compromise his principles also made him a force to be reckoned with behind the scenes. Among the most significant challenges were his disagreements with Norman Lear, the show's visionary creator. While O'Connor deeply respected Lear's groundbreaking approach to television, he sometimes clashed with him over script changes, dialogue nuances, and the portrayal of Archie's character. O'Connor believed in keeping Archie relatable, believable, and human, whereas Lear occasionally pushed boundaries that O'Connor felt might alienate audiences. These debates were intense, and though never publicized at the time, they shaped the show in profound ways. Each argument and compromise added subtle layers to Archie Bunker, creating a character who could be both offensive and oddly endearing, repelling viewers and drawing them in at the same time. Relationships with co-stars were equally complex. Jean Stapleton, who played Edith, and Rob Reiner, who played Michael, were allies and collaborators, but even these relationships required constant negotiation. The chemistry that audiences adored did not happen automatically. It was forged through long hours of rehearsal, discussion, and occasional disagreement. Stapleton and O'Connor shared a deep mutual respect, but like any team working under pressure, they sometimes clashed over comedic timing or interpretation. Reiner, young and outspoken, brought an energy that challenged O'Connor in ways that were both frustrating and inspiring. These interactions, tense, creative, and collaborative, helped shape a cast capable of tackling sensitive topics with humor and nuance, producing performances that felt lived in rather than scripted. Beyond the set, public perception added another layer of complexity. Critics and journalists often speculated about feuds and alliances, creating narratives that were only partly true. O'Connor had to maintain professionalism while managing rumors, ensuring that the show's reputation and the cast's cohesion remained intact. His ability to balance these pressures demonstrated not only his talent as an actor, but also his remarkable capacity as a leader within the ensemble. Behind every laugh and tear broadcast to millions, there was a constant negotiation of personality, ego, and ambition. Yet despite the conflicts, the alliances formed on set were just as powerful. O'Connor fostered an environment where collaboration triumphed over disagreement. He encouraged dialogue, compromise, and respect, ensuring that even when tensions rose, the integrity of the show remained intact. These behind-the-scenes dynamics, hidden from viewers, added depth to the series in ways audiences never fully realized. The mixture of feuds and friendships created a creative tension that made the performances sharper, the scripts bolder, and the show itself more compelling. But just as the cast and crew learned to navigate these challenges, personal tragedy struck Carroll O'Connor in ways that would profoundly affect him and alter the course of his career. Behind the humor, the social commentary, and the acclaim, O'Connor faced a loss that shook him to his core. While the public saw Archie Bunker's cantankerous wit and comedic absurdities, O'Connor was grappling with grief few could comprehend. The details of this tragedy were deeply personal, but its impact on his life and work was unmistakable. It reshaped how he approached his craft and how he related to those around him, infusing his performances with a new depth and sensitivity. For O'Connor, comedy and satire became intertwined with real emotion, grief, and the fragile navigation of human experience. His loss could not be compartmentalized. It permeated every aspect of his life, from his interactions on set to his quiet moments at home. Colleagues noticed a change in him, a deeper intensity, a somberness that contrasted sharply with Archie's loud, opinionated persona. Yet instead of retreating, O'Connor channeled his grief into his work. He deepened his commitment to authenticity, allowing Archie to evolve in ways that mirrored genuine human struggle. The laughter became more layered, the humor tempered with pathos, and Archie's moments of vulnerability resonated more strongly with audiences who thought they were simply watching a sitcom. In the wake of his loss, O'Connor also turned toward advocacy. Using his platform, he quietly championed causes that reflected his personal values and experiences. Without seeking attention, he lent his voice to issues that mattered deeply to him, showing that the man behind Archie Bunker was far more than a performer. He was a human being striving to make a difference. His colleagues, friends, and family witnessed this transformation firsthand. O'Connor's experiences deepened his understanding of the human condition, shaping not only his performances but also his relationships on set. He became more empathetic, patient, and reflective, qualities that helped balance the high-pressure environment of a groundbreaking television show. The tragedy forced him to confront the impermanence of life and the fleeting nature of fame, influencing the projects he chose and the way he carried himself in public. It was a difficult balance between personal grief and professional duty, one that O'Connor managed with remarkable grace. Ultimately, this period of sorrow and reflection added layers to his legacy. He was no longer just the actor who made audiences laugh at a stubborn bigot. He became a man who understood pain, resilience, and the depth of human emotion. That understanding elevated All in the Family from a mere sitcom into something enduring, impactful, and deeply human. As audiences continued to laugh, debate, and reflect on Archie Bunker, few realized how much of O'Connor's own life had quietly shaped the character's soul. By the late 1970s, the world was changing, and so was television. The social climate that had made All in the Family revolutionary was evolving, and Carroll O'Connor could feel the shift. Audiences still tuned in, but the conversations had begun to change. Topics that once shocked and provoked now felt familiar. The show had done its job, perhaps too well. It had opened America's living rooms to uncomfortable truths, and now those truths were part of the national conversation. But for Carroll O'Connor, the challenge was personal. He had lived as Archie Bunker for nearly a decade, carrying the weight of one of television's most polarizing characters. The question was no longer whether the show could continue. It was whether it should. Behind closed doors, discussions began about the future of All in the Family. Ratings were still strong, but the creative energy that had once fueled the series was beginning to fade. Norman Lear was eager to pursue new projects, and O'Connor found himself torn. On one hand, he understood the importance of ending on a high note and preserving the show's legacy. On the other, he believed there was still more to explore in Archie's story. The decision to end the series was bittersweet. When the final episodes were filmed, the cast and crew knew they were closing a chapter in television history. The laughter on set was tinged with melancholy. The goodbyes were genuine and emotional. For O'Connor, saying farewell to Archie was like letting go of a part of himself, a part that had shaped not only his career but his entire worldview. Yet Archie Bunker was not quite ready to disappear. Recognizing the character's cultural significance, CBS launched a spin-off titled Archie Bunker's Place. This new series offered a quieter, more introspective version of Archie. Set in a bar rather than his home, the show was less politically charged, more reflective, and in many ways more personal. O'Connor took on greater creative control, ensuring that the tone matched his vision. He wanted to portray an older, slightly wiser Archie, someone facing change, loss, and the challenge of growing old in a world that no longer mirrored his beliefs. While the spin-off never reached the groundbreaking status of its predecessor, it allowed O'Connor to explore deeper emotional territory. Viewers saw glimpses of growth in Archie, moments of vulnerability and tenderness that hinted at redemption. It was O'Connor's way of giving closure to a character who had been both loved and loathed, softening his edges without erasing his truth. The end of All in the Family marked a turning point for O'Connor himself. Free from the daily demands of network television, he reflected more openly on what the show had accomplished. In interviews, he acknowledged that Archie Bunker had always been a mirror, an uncomfortable one, but a necessary one. He spoke about the importance of laughter as a catalyst for awareness and change, and about the responsibility that came with portraying such a volatile, deeply flawed man. Even as new sitcoms emerged and television moved in new directions, O'Connor remained proud of what he and the team had created. They had broken barriers, challenged social norms, and given America something it had never seen before, a comedy that made people question their own assumptions. For O'Connor, the conclusion of that era was not an ending but an evolution. The lessons he learned from All in the Family shaped his future performances and his understanding of storytelling. Whether taking on dramatic roles or lighter parts, he carried with him the belief that art mattered most when it reflected life honestly, its humor, its pain, and its contradictions. Though the lights dimmed on Archie Bunker's living room, the echoes of his voice, his flaws, and his humanity continued to reverberate through American culture. The end of All in the Family was more than the conclusion of a sitcom. It was the closing of an era that had transformed television forever. Carroll O'Connor, celebrated for his portrayal of Archie Bunker, soon faced a profound personal tragedy that deeply affected his life and career. This private loss reshaped his approach to his work, infusing his performances with new emotional depth and sensitivity. The tragedy was not something he could separate from his art. It became a part of him. Colleagues observed a quiet intensity in his demeanor, a thoughtful stillness that contrasted with Archie's bluster. Rather than retreating from the spotlight, O'Connor channeled his grief into his craft. He allowed his pain to inform his work, enriching his performances with authenticity and pathos. Through Archie's later appearances, audiences saw traces of O'Connor's own emotional evolution, a subtle shift toward compassion and introspection that mirrored real human struggle. In the years following his loss, O'Connor also turned to advocacy, using his platform to address issues that resonated with his personal experience. He did so with humility and purpose, never seeking attention but always guided by conviction. Friends and family noted how his empathy deepened, how his understanding of life's fragility changed the way he worked, listened, and lived. This transformation shaped not only his career, but his legacy. The tragedy forced him to confront impermanence and to see beyond fame and success, focusing instead on meaning and connection. Ultimately, it added new dimensions to both the man and the performer. Carroll O'Connor was no longer just the actor who made America laugh at a stubborn bigot. He was an artist who understood pain, compassion, and resilience. Those experiences enriched All in the Family, elevating it beyond comedy into something timeless and profoundly human. Few viewers knew how much of O'Connor's real life had quietly shaped Archie Bunker's soul. But it was precisely that blend of honesty, loss, and insight that ensured Archie and the man who brought him to life would remain unforgettable.